Okay, the time is 6:30. I'll call this July 20th, 2017. Excuse me, July 24th, 2017, the work session of the mayor and council to order. We'll review the regular business and public hearing agenda items. Does anyone have anything they want to discuss on that? Brought up on it.
A couple things before we get into the meeting. Butch, on the second reading of application by Ray Montberry on the parking of the cars.
Right.
Jason,
Yes.
you've got in here the financial impact, minimal loss, and $2,500 at annual administrative variance application fees. I mean, obviously, we don't want to lose any money, but what is that? Explain that to me. How we're losing money by letting people park cars.
Because before, when we originally did the ordinance, as a result of kind of the proliferation of these kind of used car sales, the owner at that time had just a very few amount of what he called internet automotive dealers. So all the transactions are typically, or the advertising is done on the outside. And there's really no sales lot. Like, you don't come down to walk up and down the rows and purchase, you come pick your car up, or the guys pick up a few from auction, they sell them, they do a repeat process. It's not a used sales lot. It's just basically a place to park, so.
But they could show the vehicles on the site. They could walk people
but
around.
They could if they wanted to, but it's not like you drive by and then look at a car and they go rush them out. So in order to not stop the business owner from doing what he was already doing at that point, we allowed for basically an administrative variance for internet-only car sales without any storage. But the only storage he got at that time were those that were grandfathered in, which were like a couple of different dealerships or dealers that have since moved on. So that's where the gray area came, is who has vested those spots. How do we enforce it down the road, because it's kind of gotten bigger and expanded. We got some complaints. So what we're doing here is we're going to allow it just to happen without that administrative variance. But that application fee was $100, and we probably, we get a lot a year, 25 to
20,
40.
25.
Yeah, just
People
depends.
coming in and out of business.
Right, just a process to make sure that they had their, the same process over and over. And it was kind of like a business that, there's only a few that really kind of make it, and a lot of turnover. So we just see different faces, and that was it. That's where you're losing the fees, because as an outright dealer, or an auto sales lot, you don't have to have that little piece anymore, because you've been approved for it. Now, you could condition it to still receive application from the individual dealers as part of the larger business, and we could continue that process. But we just did that as a way to legitimize each dealer, let them know when we saw them that they couldn't store any autos.
It just seems like then that's kind of foregoing any oversight that we might have of what kind of businesses are actually operating down there.
Well, everybody still has to get a business license, and even any other car dealership has to get a business license. So they can't get their state license, which is what makes everything work, without our blessing. So they have to come to us, but we just.
Well, and I understand it's a small amount of money, but it's as if we're subsidizing other businesses.
Yeah, and I don't think that was the intent of the ordinance, but that's basically just an effect of what's gonna happen when they're allowed the outright storage and basically use of the property in this manner. So that's why we put it there.
How difficult would it be to modify this to pertain only to existing? And then if somebody else comes in at a later date?
Well, that's the thing, we want this to kind of be, this regulation to stick to the property so that it's specific to this owner's property, so that any dealer in the future can come in and store however many spaces are approved tonight, not necessarily, it doesn't matter who the dealer is as long as they're in that slot. They still have to come get a business license and a zoning certification, but they wouldn't be considered, internet only at this point, because they would have storage. I'm sure there's a way you could craft it to still elect the processing.
Well, and the other thought, collectively as probably a business group, these people probably know a whole lot of one another, and hey, I've got 13 parking spaces over here if you need to park some cars. I'm just worried that,
Oh, they'll have to have either a registered tag, and that was one of the conditions, or
Right.
a dealer affiliated tag on the vehicle
Right.
so that enforcement is more accessible. That's part of the issue we're having. We don't know whose cars belong to who between the sale from the auction, so we didn't know who to go get if there's a junk vehicle with no tag or flat tires. Now,
Yeah.
with the condition, they'll all have to act the same way, just like a regular auto sales lot would be, a dealer tag or current registration.
Yeah, I mean, that was our argument to Ray. Basically, he had one or two businesses, I guess, that were grandfathered.
Right.
But he was just, relying on everybody turning their heads, and he had other people with some cars down there. And he felt like he had, unofficial permission to do that. And we said, the only way to make this legal and official is to go through the process where you guys could review it, planning commission, and you guys could review it and approve the change. So that's why he went through the process. I think it makes it better for everybody. And it's a legitimate question, though, if you want to take that up.
well, I mean, if we, something we can look at, I just think that we need to make it,
You could
Yeah.
add it as a condition, I'm sure you could work it in that, any dealers that, apply for this property due to, applicant administrative costs have to pay the fee. Because we do get a lot, it's not like you get one car dealership and they come and they're good for 10 years and they're dealing, your process.
well, and again, as that number potentially escalates,
Right.
then this number potentially escalates. So it may be 2,500 this year, it may be 5,000 next year. I mean, that's my concern, is that this is a nonstop opportunity if that's what happens. And I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying potentially, in order to not harm ourselves any worse than this, I think it's something we should probably take a look at. Butch, on the Caleb Raycott, the TSW contract, the 145 is apparently just for phase 3, is that correct?
It's for the completion of the ordinance, yes.
Okay, okay, so that's 145 in addition to what is in his email that we have already paid, is that correct?
That's correct, that's right.
Okay, so his question about, I guess we didn't use all of the 30,000 that was still remaining to be used for that phase, I guess at that point it'd be
That's
phase
right.
2.
That's right.
Right.
It just
So
went
are
back
we
into
just
the
going
general
to
fund.
carry this, are they gonna issue us a check for that and go back to the general fund? Or, based on his two questions, they can either close them out and just have bill 30,000 less than the amount of the city contract for, or number 2, continue billing towards these existing contracts until the fee is used up. Then the bill to the new fee, which would be reduced by 30,000. From a record keeping perspective, number 1 is easier for them, but I know that that would make it look like the council effectively authorized 30,000 more than the project actually cost. Do you have a preference? And I think he's given us a warning that something could look, if we don't do it in the proper way.
Well, we paid $92,162 for what potentially was $123,150. What I put this in here because I wanted you to see that we had saved 25% on the first two phases. I feel like we'll save 20 to 25% on phase 3 also.
But my question is, what is the answer to his question about how we want to handle that $30,000?
I've told him to close it out.
Okay, so you said close it out, number 1.
That's
So you
correct.
answered with number 1.
Yeah.
So he's going to close it out and then going to send us a check for that remaining balance?
No, we've only paid
We
what's been
haven't
billed.
paid it.
We've only
Okay.
paid $92,162.
All right. I
That's
didn't know if we
savings.
did, that was my question.
Yeah.
Or have we paid
No.
upfront?
No.
Okay.
No.
So- so
And we
we-
won't on the 145 either. That's why I'm saying that I feel like we will, we budgeted 120 and I feel like we'll stay within that 120.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why they were they were chosen. They were a lot more flexible in working with
Yeah,
us
okay.
as a client.
The rezoning request for the police department, have they closed on that property yet? Or are
I
they,
think they
the
could
closing,
close
they
prior
can't
to
close
zoning,
and
right?
they can't, my understanding was they wouldn't close prior to,
It was contingent
yes,
on
it's
that.
contingent.
Yes, sir. And we gotta finish up.
And then
that
they
plan.
have a X number of days after this is approved, is that?
Yeah, I'm not privy to the contract details, but that's what I understand.
Is
Yes,
that
X number day.
Okay, anything else on the regular business public hearing agenda? Anyone would like to discuss? Okay, before we go any further in the work session, I'd like to let you know, we need an exec session, and we need to make a phone call at 7 PM. So I'd like to get the work session, if we can, completed by 7, so we can have the work session after that phone call. If we can't do that, that's fine, but that's just what we're shooting for, okay? Any correspondence to review? Okay. City attorney's report?
We just need an executive session on both litigation and real estate.
Okay. Discussion of audio video proposals.
I've handed out the latest and last audio-visual upgrade proposal. I can let you know, history-wise, we talked to 5 different proposers. The ranges were, the dollar range was from $73,000 to $110,000. We picked the best, most qualified vendor, Howard Technology Solutions. They will be here next time at the next work session to answer any questions once you have a chance to look this over. We negotiated, pared it down to the $64,896 number. This includes basically what we have. It replaces a patchwork 3-vendor system, and it makes it unified with one vendor, warranties all in place, and a system that is coordinated and interfaced, every part of it, that I think will last a long time. I don't know how we got in the shape that we did in that room, in that building, in this building, but this is what I'd like you to review, because this is what I'm going to recommend. Howard, as I said, will be here at the next meeting to ask any technical questions, but this, thanks to Erica and Melissa in helping us get to this point, I feel like this is the best proposal that we could get, that we get more bang for the buck, and we get a system that we can move forward with for the next 20 years.
Can you have him ready to show us a little demo about what the video looks like just right after the meeting, and then what steps someone has to actually do to have it ready to get put up on the web,
You bet.
so that we can actually see it in action?
You can do that.
This says the quote expires April 20th, 2017.
And we've already extended that.
You know, the other thing is, there's talking here about replacing the cameras. And those cameras, is Erica in here? No? Those cameras are only 2 years old, 3 years old. We used to have just the one camera that was, then we went to the ones in the ceiling. They used to be just in the corner. And we went to, we used to just have that one wide screen view of the council. Then we put in 4 cameras. We spent like $20,000 putting those cameras, just that camera system in 2012 or 2000. You know when that was, Melissa?
It was 13.
Even 13, 4 years ago. I can't believe there was a
Well,
technology you have to replace 4 of them.
you know, whether, if the system does not properly, the system that we have doesn't talk to and control the cameras, there are, I mean, you've got a new controller here. I'll I'll be glad to make sure that's
And I don't know if we're replacing so much as maybe adding.
we're adding one to the back of the room.
Well, and this camera looks like it's rotated by under control, rotatable.
Well, ours rotates, the ones we have, everything directly. And zoom in and
Yeah. Oh, seems like they're all fixed when I look at the videos.
yeah, well,
Okay. What's the deal on some cameras?
I think one of the biggest things here, you'll have accountability. You have one vendor who is putting a system in that they're standing behind, and right now, we have one vendor who's out of business. We have obsolete equipment in front of you as far as the microphones. They don't work on them, they won't replace them. We're down, I'm not even sure we have one replacement left. We might be down to our last replacement. And it just got into a situation where, unfortunately, a total replacement is the smartest thing to do now. So, but I'll have them here, look this over, call me, we'll get all our questions together, and we'll have a walkthrough, Barbara, where you can hopefully have a total understanding of what we're looking for.
okay.
He just
So we
show
have
and tell.
the city attorney report.
I don't know what that is. Stuff
Okay,
does.
consultant town hall, Mr. Marlowe.
Okay, this one, I put it on there because mainly from the emails that went out earlier, 2 weeks ago almost. And it all came about basically from where the mayor had a proposal of possibly doing some kind of Q&A type thing on Facebook. And we were all kind of just like, yeah, that's fine. And then I thought about it the following day, and I had a few questions because, first of all, to me that seems singular versus a town hall, which is you can get many perspectives instead of one perspective. And the other one I was curious was, how's it being funded? How much does it cost? Who's it consulting? Those kind of questions. And then your response, Mayor, which was just basically a line from our current code, our charter, which, where did you get that line? I'm curious. It was like, did you just find it, or was that Tony? Or,
It's in the muni code.
huh?
It's in the muni code.
Unicode.
No, like you just looked it up and sent it?
Yeah.
Okay. And, but my question
You
is.
were just asking why I did it, or what. Your second, I'm just showing you that I have the authority, that's all I was doing. Nothing more.
But my questions were never answered though, which was, how's it being funded? Who's the consultant? How much does it cost?
There's no cost to it.
So, and then there's no cost to it. Okay, so I asked Butch, who's doing the consulting? Because there obviously wasn't just Tom doing this, like when I look at the video and you hear the documents going out. He said Jeremy Brand is the consultant. I asked how much are they paying Jeremy Brand. That's how I found this out 2 weeks ago, which I really should have known since the beginning I've been on council. Found out, how much was it that we're paying him a month?
$1,500
$1,500. How long have we been paying him? $1,500 a month?
for probably 7 or 8 months.
So $1,500 a month we've been paying, to me, what looks like a conflict of interest right off the bat. And I was never informed, never told about this. And I'm curious, who knew that? Who knew that that was our consultant for the city? Did you guys know?
Yeah.
You knew?
Yeah,
And you guys are
We
fine?
talked
no
about
idea.
it in the
We
work
voted on it, as far as
session.
I know, didn't we?
we've hired him. It's my
Yeah,
understanding.
we voted on it.
To be he's helping with public relations for
With the pe-
the town center
Town center.
rollout, education of the public, handling, he helped set up the other town hall, the actual town hall meetings that we had.
Because I remember about,
Kind of helped directed like all the different components of the city and
Yeah, I
ways
know.
to get information out.
because I remember about 7 or 8 months ago, I brought the same thing up, and Jeremy was here for that meeting, and it was just a handful of people in here, and I brought up the same issues that I could see later on, because to me what this looks like basically is conflict of interest because campaign consultants, now he's getting paid by the city, and if if it was real sacrifice towards building a downtown center, like here, I'll give you an example. I purposely don't want to buy property in the downtown center because I'm doing a cafe, because of perception of what it looks like. I could do it, but because of perception, I choose not to. And it cost me financially, because I would have bought that property for $200,000 that's over here, but I decided not to. And then there's a consultant, gets a job with the city or whatever. But for conflict of interest reasons, I would think he would stay out of it, just because it's easily could become a thing in, like, when you're in for office. Like, oh, this consultant was blah blah, and you connect, and then it becomes a big issue, then it looks bad on the city. And it's happened before in other elections. It's just, I would think something like that would be so obvious where someone would be like, wait, no, I'll recommend somebody else, or I would say someone else do it. Does anybody disagree with this thought, or what do you guys think?
I think a consultant's a consultant, and he makes a living by consulting.
By doing
For
the
PR.
particular task that you've hired them
Yeah,
to do,
yeah.
whether that's,
If it got down to the point, I don't know, if it got down to the point where he was doing both at the same time, that might be a potential conflict, but we're not there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a conflict if he was actively working on somebody's campaign at the same time that he was doing PR for the city. And I think as long as everybody's watchful of what he's doing with the city, and that it's not gearing anything towards, particular candidates or anything, that it is really PR for the city and PR for town center development, or PR for, how do we educate the public? How, what's the best ways for us to roll out this information to people? And through some of those discussions is kind of where we've had some of the thoughts for the magazine articles, that have come out, keeping things out in front of the public and getting information out to the public. What are our different avenues? And I think if that started looking or feeling like he was trying to set Christie up in a better light for her next campaign, or you up in a better light, or me up in a better light for next that I would have a problem with.
Well, and
Well,
to
no.
Roger's point, I think that's probably the perception thing is always the worry. It's not necessarily the reality, and we all know that. And it's a valid concern from my perspective, is we have to be very careful about that. And
Is Ryan's Previs,
Well, I-
is Ryan's Previs, the secretary of the president's top consultant, is that a conflict of interest because he ran the president's campaign?
I would argue, yeah, he probably gets a ton of work and a ton of, I would guess.
You think it's a conflict of interest?
I would, yeah.
Although it's been done by every president for the
Because it's been done, that doesn't prove a point. Like this is where there's a big disconnect in people in office and then the people that vote for people in office. Because to me, this seems like a clear conflict, and you guys are arguing, what you guys are arguing was just his job duties, not really, they're like, oh, this is what he does, this is what consultants do, this, but not really the part where I believe individuals should sacrifice for the better good, and we're trying to do a downtown center, and I really don't want stuff hindering in the future. Like, I could see in the future if somebody says, oh, they're building downtown center, oh, whoever's consultant he was for whoever now gets paid this much for the city, blah, blah, blah. And that can go run with it, the media can go crazy, the people go, that stuff happens, and then there's a bad taint on the city. Because of that one little thing that could have just been avoided by someone saying, oh, let's just hire a different consultant and avoid the whole issue altogether. And that $1,500 or whatever he's making now would have been the sacrifice. And I would think if I was a consultant, I wouldn't be like trying to do stuff like that just for the cat, like the money. At the end of the day, it's like money. It's not really like there's, but it's a different topic. I just wanted to bring it up because I just wanted to say for the record that I don't approve of that, and it was my personal belief that we should have a different consultant, not Jeremy Brown, because of the conflict of interest, and I just wanted it for the record. But because of the sacrifice issue, like I think people should sacrifice for this specific case, for the downtown center. long-term for people in Snellville, 15, however long many years it is from now, where it gets developed. And I just don't,
Well,
it bothers
let
me to
ask
see
a
other
question.
people not doing it.
Let me, because it's back to be asked, what do you consider sacrifice?
Well, for individual, for us, would have been like campaigning all the crap we had to deal with the other side. That would have been like some sacrifice, time. All our energies are sacrificed because we're public servants. But and we're going to continue sacrificing as we build this with other things we do. But personally, for me, it would have been like, oh, I didn't buy that property, or my time I'm giving towards this and doing that, which is the same as y'all. But for a consultant, for example, would it be like, well, that one would have been like, we get a different one, not Jeremy, because it could hinder progress in the future. For Butch, it'd be like, he's meeting at all these meetings with the developers, trying to make deals, which one was better, which one's not better. So that's just, it goes all around really on work.
I think he was hired because he's done a good job in the past. And your point's well taken, but there's no conflict because there's nothing else going on. And I think it would be foolish to say, we're not going to use him because if this happens, and if this happens, if this happens, there might be a conflict, and hire somebody else who doesn't do as good a job. He knows the city. He knows a lot of the factions that have been involved in the past, so the town center is going to have to be sold to a lot of people. And I would rather have him doing it than somebody who we don't know, who may be on board, maybe not, in terms of understanding what we have to do and what the challenge is. So,
Well, and talking a little bit about the Facebook videos, whatever, I mean, my initial concern was the fact we didn't really get a chance to vet it or talk about it or discuss how it now become a public record, how it's now part of an open record, how it's a video, and how we save that and make sure we don't get into issues with people asking inappropriate or not wanted questions. We can't alter it. We can't not like somebody's question because they ask it. It's the whole string, everything stays as part of a city record because
Well,
it's been...
What question would come up that I couldn't honestly answer?
Well, on live stream, there's a lot. Because I've done some
No,
live stuff.
one that I
that's
could
like-
not honestly answer.
Oh, it can be anything anybody types on there.
Well,
Like ridiculous stuff.
I mean,
We handle that as a regular course of action, though. I mean,
Yep.
it's not anything
In the
different.
same way we could get an email or somebody could stand up
Right.
at a public
Well,
town
but
hall
in-
meeting.
But
and-
but in that format, how have we decided to handle all of those pieces of information with regard to retaining it, keeping it in our purview? What decisions have been made in that regard? Are we gonna post this video alongside of our agenda council videos as something, a linkable piece
it's
that?
by the mayor, it's not by the city. It's the mayor, and I'm just, all I'm doing is, I really think this is.
Just a summary
a
of
lot
what
more than
we did
nothing.
in the meeting
I'm
is
doing
what-
just a summary of what was
my
passed
understanding.
at the meetings, I'm not gonna,
You're speaking for the city based on
Exactly right.
2.29, so if you're speaking for the city, that's the city.
yeah.
Is that
Okay,
correct?
okay.
Is that correct or
I
not?
speak as the mayor, talking about what was accomplished at the meeting.
Okay, but in your response to Roger, you made it a point to highlight that side of it.
Yeah, it's true.
So you decided you're gonna speak for it, so that
I
means,
didn't decide it,
well, I'll go back and read it, it's not a problem, I'll go back and read it. But I'm just saying, my frustration is we didn't even get a chance to talk about any of this stuff as the potential, what could happen, or what should we be doing in regards to this, to open records laws, sunshine law, any of that kind of stuff. We didn't get to talk about any of that stuff. So that's the disappointment.
would
that
you
I
feel
find.
better if we brought it to a vote tonight?
Sorry?
Even though I don't feel I need to, would you feel better if I amended the agenda and brought it to a vote tonight?
And that precludes even having an opportunity to talk about
I
it.
think
We're
he's,
talking about it now.
I think maybe 2 or 3 of us need to have a private conversation we don't need to make a bigger, we got things to do, we don't think we need to make a bigger deal out of it than it is, and I think there are some questions that can be addressed.
I'll be honest with you, I'm getting used to the cheap shots. Okay, update
What's
of
next?
ongoing projects.
Okay, we'll do this quickly.
Right out of your playbook there, Warren on.
The, couple of updates for the executive session during the, regarding the town center plan. We are working on the RFP process. Tony, I'd asked you if Mike, the county attorney, he said he had some, maybe some issues or some items he wanted to make sure that was in the RFP. I only want to do it one time if I can. Can you check with him and see? We want to make sure that we have everything in there that satisfies the county's procurement process.
And that's you're talking about library.
Yes, yes. Public relations, marketing town, obviously, the discussion is ongoing there. Town hall meetings, we're waiting for the right time and the right format. UDO is on the agenda for adoption tonight. AV, you have an overview to look at. The folks from Howard will be here next time. Roundabout construction, that really is going to be discussed in executive session also. Oak Road Park, thank you for everybody participating there. I think we had good neighborhood participation. It was awful hot, I know, but I thought it went very well, and I drove by there early this morning. There were probably 10 people walking on the
Cool.
walkway this morning. The 78-124 project pre-construction meeting is set in Athens for August the 8th. I'm trying to get some early information to meet all the people and, let them know what our issues are before that meeting, but we will be well represented there. Business retention and attraction is ongoing also. The Arts Commission Rewind, you have some appointments. I think there'll be a little change in one of those appointments. Mr. McKinley will not be serving, but they have an alternate for the next meeting. The SPLOS program, have a meeting with Alan Chapman and DOT, I think the week after next, to talk about our city and county projects there. And there's really no change as far as higher education outreach is concerned. And this phone call needs to be part of the executive session for a short update there.
During a work session of the mayor and city council, Snellville, Georgia, Mayor Witz announced that certain matters should be discussed in a closed session of the meeting and ask council to advise the city with respect to closing the meeting. City attorney Tony Powell advised the city of the following reasons to close the meeting: to discuss pending and/or potential litigation, settlement claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial actions which is exempt from the Open Meetings Act pursuant to OCGA Section 50-14-2-1.